a major in the U.S. Army, Danny Sjursen, writes frequently on TomDispatch, and they reposted one of them on truthdig.com. We'll put the link in the show notes below. But it's a fantastic article. He's talking about the lies we tell ourselves, and he's really debunking all of this, like, rah, rah, support the troops war stuff, because he lost people. He fought, overseas, and it's a fantastic read. I'll do some excerpts from it, and this is what we kind of need. He's a U.S. Army officer and a former history instructor at West Point. He served tours with reconnaissance units in Iraq and Afghanistan. So this is what we need, because it's easier for, some hippie comedian like me to say, oh, no war, no war. And just because I went over there and told jokes in war zones doesn't mean I know what a combat vet, I have no idea what a combat vet goes through. No idea. So I can't really, I can't speak to it. But a combat vet can, and a combat vet should. Because there's a quote from MacArthur that's like, it is the soldier above all else who bears the greatest wounds of war. I'm misquoting it, but I put it at the end of Afghanistan for a reason, because it was a General MacArthur saying, it's hardest on those who serve, and those who serve should be speaking out as to why we shouldn't be in these endless wars. So I'm going to read you some stuff from this, because it was really, amazing. He writes, 7 of my soldiers are dead, 2 committed suicide, bombs got the others in Iraq and Afghanistan, 1 young man lost 3 limbs, another is paralyzed. I entered West Point a couple months before 9/11. 8 of my classmates died over there. Military service, war sacrifice when I was 17. I felt sure this would bring me meaning, adulation, even glory. It went another way. 16 years later, my generation of soldiers is still ensnarled in an indecisive, unfulfilling series of losing wars. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen, Somalia, Niger. Who even can keep count anymore? Sometimes I allow myself to wonder what it's all been for. I find it hard to believe I'm the only one who sees it. Nonetheless, you hear few dissenting voices among the veterans of the global war on terror. See, soldiers are all professionals now, at least since Richard Nixon ditched the draft in 1973. Mostly the troops, especially the officers, uphold an unwritten code, speak an esoteric vernacular, and hide behind a veil of reticence. It's a camouflage wall as thick as the blue line of police silence. Maybe it's necessary to keep the machine running. I used to believe that. Sometimes, though, we tell you lies. Don't take it personally. We tell them to each other and ourselves as well. So he's going to go into 3 specific lies. First one, soldiers don't fight or die for king, country, or apple pie. They do it for each other, for teammates and friends. Think Henry V's band of brothers. In that sense, these troops can never be said to die for nothing, right? And this is his counter to that. No disrespect to the fallen, but this framework is problematic and a slippery slope formula for forever war. Imagine the dangerous inverse of this logic. If no soldiers' lives can be wasted, no matter how unmerited or ill-advised the war, then the mere presence of U.S. warriors and deaths of American troopers justifies any war, all war. Isn't that an amazing point? And what he's doing from the view of the soldier, of an officer, of a West Point officer nonetheless, that served in combat and lost friends over there, is telling you from the inside how the corporate war machine, this is the thing we've talked about numerous times on this show, this is the thing Chris Hedges talks about, is part of this never-ending war and this hyper-masculinity that's a result or a part of or helps fuel the never-ending war, is the nobility of this band of brothers, and I do it for the guy next to me. And on paper, and its first surface or first layer, it's like, oh yeah, that is noble. You do it for the guy next to you, yeah. But you dig deep and you realize this is probably part of the goddamn propaganda machine that was started to justify wars going back as early as World War I, when Woodrow Wilson appointed George Creel to put out all this propaganda, because leading up to World War I, it was already happening in Europe. Most Americans did not want to get involved in World War I. It was literally called the Wall Street War. It was Wall Street's war. And so Woodrow Wilson hired this guy Creel to do this whole propaganda machine to get Americans the war to end all wars. That was a marketing slogan. If we fight this war, if we win this war, it wasn't called World War I at the time, but if we fight this world war, then there'll be no more wars after it. Really? 1915, you ended them all. And this is part of it. Especially since Vietnam, when everybody stopped trusting their government, then you need this type of propaganda. You need this type of marketing to say, oh, just do it for the guy next to you. If anyone's like, I don't want to die, then my country's bullshit. This is all lies. It's corporate, it's banks, it's oil. I don't want to do this. Yeah, but do it for your brother. And the nobility that is constantly sold to us, in particular to young men, and now even young women, that joining the army and being in war is noble. It's heroic. Two things, in fact, can be true at once. American servicemen can die for no good reason, and many have fought hard and honorably with or for their mates. The one does not preclude the other. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. That's such an American sickness, is the either or. We just have, everything's got to be either or. No, it's both. They're not mutually exclusive. Americans he's talking about are going to get more of this rhetoric. We saw it when Sean Spicer, President Trump's former press secretary, had the gall to declare that questioning the success of a botched January raid in Yemen does a disservice to the Navy SEAL killed in the firefight. We can't question it? Did this guy die for nothing? Hey, stop questioning. Oh, no, I want to know. I don't want to lose more Navy SEALs. Can we not lose more Navy SEALs or Marines or soldiers or airmen or Navy or whatever? How about none of them? You're not allowed to question it. You're not allowed to question it. It's part of the bullshit. Yeah. Lie number 2. We have to fight them. Terrorists, Arabs, Muslims, whomever, over there, so we don't end up fighting them over here. In fact, the opposite is likely true. Detailed State Department statistics demonstrate that international terrorist attacks numbered 346 in 2001, down from 426 in 2000. Well, that's not good for business. 11,072 worldwide terrorist attacks in 2016. That's a 3,100% increase. Sure, the vast majority of those attacks occurred overseas, mostly suffered by civilians across the greater Middle East. Then again, even domestic attacks have risen since the U.S. launched its war on terror. In 2001, 219 terror attacks worldwide were considered by the Department of State to be anti-U.S., and only 4 of those occurred in North America, the homeland. In 2016, 72 terrorist incidents took place in North America. 61 were in the United States alone. So no, we're not making this country safer. We are making it worse. And arm yourself with these statistics when you're talking to neocons and pro-soldiers and war, and how dare Kaepernick take a knee, all this other bullshit. Man, I thank this major for doing this research and putting these statistics out here. A West Point grad, when someone questioned you, was it some hippie liberal statistics? No, a West Point grad gave these statistics. And he got them from the State Department because he has access to them. Pre 9/11, an average of 5.6 people were killed annually in terrorist attacks within the United States. 15 years forward, an average of 32.2 people died at the hands of terrorists here in the United States since 2001. And we got to keep spending money on the global war on terror? We just increased the budget by $80 billion and a bunch of Democrats voted for it, including Kamala Harris, Tim Kaine, and Dianne Feinstein? 3 corporate Democrats? Really? This is working? The global war on terror? It's working. Seems like maybe it isn't. In Africa, for instance, prior to 9/11, few American troops patrolled the continent, and there were few recognized anti-U.S. threat groups in the region. Nonetheless, President George Bush and later Barack Obama soon sent more and more U.S. special operators to advise and assist across Africa. By 2017, Al-Qaeda and Islamic State-linked factions has multiplied and were now killing American troops. We go out and stir up all this shit and then think, oh, we got to spend more money on military to keep people safe. We have made the world and this country less safe. The 16-year, $5 trillion+ global war on terror has made us less safe. It's bullshit. And when neoliberals want to go after Trump, go, yeah, that's great, Trump's awful, but Obama helped ramp us up to this. And Bush. Lie number 3. Americans are obliged to honor the troops. They fight for your freedom. Actively opposing their wars dishonors their sacrifice. This is what this West Point Army major says. This is simply illogical and another surefire way to justify perpetual war. Like the recent NFL national anthem debate, such rhetoric serves mostly as a distraction. First off, it's abstract and absurd to argue that U.S. troops engaged in a sprawling war on terror are dying to secure American freedom, as we just pointed out. After all, these are wars of choice, away games conducted offensively in distant lands with dubious allies and motives. Did a video on us, our ally of Saudi Arabia, and the horrifying 130 children a day that are dying in Yemen. A quick stat. And this don't dishonor the troops nonsense is as old as war itself. The sort of stab in the back myths were heard in Weimar Germany after World War I and in post-Vietnam America. You know the shtick. The soldiers could have won, should have won, if only they hadn't been stabbed in the back by the politicians and so on. So let's not forget, however, that the First Amendment, for those who bother to read it, sanctifies the citizenry's right to dissent. Furthermore, the Constitution purposefully divides responsibility for war, making among the separate branches of government. Those who claim peaceful protest dishonor or undermines the soldiers don't want an engaged populace. Yeah, that's absolutely. Don't ask questions. Shut up. Stop bad-mouthing. You're spitting on the troops, man. Fuck you. No, wait a minute. I don't want them to come home in flag-draped coffins. I've seen those up close. I've seen soldiers without arms and legs. It's brutal. I don't want to see that. And I'm a bad patriot because I asked this question? No, you're a fucking psychopath. So, this is a great article, and I'm glad that this major is speaking up about this. Major Danny Sjursen, excuse me. Sorry, Danny, if I mispronounced your name. And, you know, post this video on your Facebook. And see what people say about it. Especially if you know a lot. I know a lot of vets. I know a lot of people that served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And maybe you served there too. I know we got a lot of vets that watch this show. You know? This is great. More vets need to speak up. More vets need to speak up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting the show. Like and subscribe. Go to the Patreon. You guys are great.